Hello and welcome to the Arrays of Living Live show. We are on the air. How is everyone doing? Let's get the chat going. So I am here. My goodness. Okay, so a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, when you jump on the chat or on the chat board, please let yourself be known. Tell us where you're from. During the session, as you know, I'll ask questions. So feel free to respond in the chat or pose questions of your own or just comment. Take part. I will be checking the chat as it unfolds. So I am your host, by the way, Jen Drakes. And as always, I say I am passionate about life and living it to the fullest. Today is our In Conversation episode, in which I'm joined by a guest. And across 2021, we have quite an amazing lineup of guests for our In Conversation with shows. And you will see soon why I say this, because February is the month of love. And in honor of Sexual and Reproductive Health Awareness Week, which kicks off today through to Valentine's Day, more love, we are in conversation with Theano Evagelou, who is a certified sex, love, and relationship coach. And she's here to speak with us about the lost art of devotion. A conversation I believe may have us blushing, me included. And she's been warned. Theano's theme word is surrender. She carries the reputation of being a modern day love doctor and is both a government certified authentic Tantra practitioner and a sex, love, and relationship coach with who guides busy, purpose driven leaders. Okay, who fits into that bucket? I certainly do. To master their personal lives to the same expert level they've mastered their professional lives. Through her non conventional consultancy, Theano offers tailored guidance for both individuals and couples. Her clients describe her as her advisory as powerful, provocative, evocative, challenging, and life changing. Theano, thank you for joining us. What an introduction.
I was going to say, can I get a copy of that? Because that was so good. Thank you so much for such a beautiful welcome.
So, as I said, I have been looking forward to this discussion because we know there's so much brokenness out there related to relationships, related to sexual encounters, and just love. And to bring all three of those together in this discussion, to me, is quite, what should I say, forward challenging to some extent, but also quite tantalizing. Is a word I would put. And I'm
Alluring.
just, yes, exactly. And I'm just so excited for it. So, okay, why this topic? Tell me why you chose to be a sex, love, and relationship coach.
It's interesting. So I've done, I come from a very high conflict divorce where I had no good teachings or trainings. Is. And so obviously I got into a lot of dysfunctional relationships myself and did lots of therapies throughout my life. But it wasn't until my divorce 10 years ago where, my ex chose a lifestyle over a marriage. And, I was questioning everything I was as a woman, a wife, a mother, my sexuality. And it really just took me on this journey. And I had this 3-year-old girl at the time, watching my every move. And I had to decide, how do I want to show up and pave the way for her in the midst of conflict and chaos? And I was a person who, growing up, who am I as a woman, not body well, not connected to my soul. So it took me on this path, and I was exploring different modalities of just really coming home into my body, learning to have a love affair with myself. And all relationships stem from the relationship you have to yourself. So
that is so true. That is so true. Because one of the things that I've spoken on my podcast and quite frequently in the time that I've been around has been that finding that intimate relationship with yourself. I was blessed that mine was forged at a young age. I had no, just through the circumstances that were going on then. But I think it's important that people understand what an intimate self relationship really is. And I use that word because it's not typically used with individuals, with yourself. It's typically used seeking intimacy with someone else. But then we question, how can you have intimacy? At least I do. How can you question have intimacy with someone else if you don't have it with yourself? So I think some of what you're saying aligns somewhat to that. So maybe you can just expand a little bit more on that whole self piece.
Well, it's really understanding what your true yeses or no is. Like, our body has, a lot of the work I do with clients is really getting that mind body consciousness connected. And our body has its own consciousness. It doesn't talk to us in words or whatever. It talks to us through our pains, through our emotions, through the ailments that come over time. So when we actually stop and start to slow down and really connect to our sensory experience, our internal world, we start getting wisdom to our yeses, our nos, what we like, what we don't like. And what that allows us, one, it builds an embodiment. Like there's this grounded force, I'm going to say, that starts to build within you. And then eventually, like your confidence, into the outside world, because you're able to set boundaries. You're able to, say what you want, what you don't want, what your desires are, because you're tuned with that relationship to your internal world.
Right. And that is, it's beautifully said what you Theano, because hard times, what people look at, when you have challenges, and especially divorce is one that so many people can relate to. And it puts us on a path in which you have to decide the individual that you are. And if your divorce becomes contentious, I believe it changes who you are. And before you get into that contentious mode, you need to somehow step back and just say, what are my values? How do I want to handle this? Because yes, kids are watching. And the way you act sets a message for them on how to deal with conflict and how to stand your ground on your values related to certain things. So you also brought another interesting point related to the fact that you had a 3-year-old watching just how you would react and give this whole journey for yourself. And, as someone that's also has an ex, I fully understand that. So again, maybe some insights there
Oh
on that
gosh,
journey you went through.
I've got wisdom bombs on. Yeah. There's many things I want to say about. One, you get to decide. You get to choose, who do I want to be on the other side of it? Who do I want to be through it? Okay. And we can all choose victim or, poor me and whatever. And we're all going to go through these like huge ups and down cycles of diverse emotions because we're finding ourselves in the midst of chaos, right? And, so for me, because even my parents, when they went through their divorce, it was very high conflict. It was very publicized. They didn't have the tools. So it was witnessing them go through, either victimization or manipulation or just this tug of war where these children were just pulled into it. And I said, I do not want that for my daughter. So how would I do it differently? And I was like, I have to invest very heavily in myself to make sure I have the support, the tools, the resources to get me through this. And what that helped me do, one, it helped me keep my mental health very well. It helped me keep my emotional. Yes, there were times when you're initially going through it, you're emotionally vomiting. Like anyone that's going to hear you, you're going out. But then it's like, okay, how can, for me, I had to isolate more because the influences of people's opinions or what I should do, shouldn't do, I feel I would have been in a mental institute if I listened to everyone, just the different ways. So I just choose to retract and hire the professionals or the resources that I trusted to hold me, to nurture me through this experience. And what that allowed also is on the other side, keep taking care of myself, being able to focus on my daughter, being able to also eventually get to a point where instead of being angry at my ex or having, projected feelings, I was able to have compassion. I was able to come into forgiveness because he's wounded too. And this is how he dealt with he knows how to deal with his, I'm going to say, traumas or
Mm-hmm.
pattern in this way. Doesn't make him right or wrong. He's working within his capacity. I still don't need to make it right for my world or whatever, and I'm able to put boundaries, but I can also accept the two truths simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
And
make
that
sense?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think the exercise, I think what you did is what I call scoping. We tend to use that more in business than in life, but it is still the same thing. It's scoping. What are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go? What conversations are you willing to have?
Mm-hmm.
And then stepping into that and staying true to whatever those boundaries are you have set for yourself. So it's interesting to see that one of the messages you're sending is just how valuable that exercise is.
Totally. And also, like, self-care and all of that is hugely important because when when things are so volatile about, you don't have a person that's willing to negotiate with you or come to me, and you're spinning and you're trying to find like a middle ground. If you're not self-caring, and you can get so easily swept up and lost. So it's like, am I sourcing? Do I have tools, whatever that is? And what I have a funny story, actually, I'll share just through
Oh,
this.
by all means.
My divorce took, like, even though it settled in 2 years, the process of legal interludes were 8 years long, right? And I remember when it came to an end and I was going to court, and you're like, everyone you're just trying to finalize things. Everyone hates going to court. And it's like dreaded, you're miserable, you're paranoid, and things are going to turn out. And I said to myself that morning, I was like, Tia, I'm going to say Tia because that's my nickname that I go by. How do you want to show up in this courtroom? Like, no matter what happens, who do you want to be? So I'm going to put on my sexiest, best lingerie underneath. Okay. Like, I had stay-ups, I had like a bustier thing. Like, I just felt so super hot. But on top of that, I had my suit, right?
Yeah.
No one knew how, except for me. Okay. So I walk into this courtroom, like, I'm feeling like $1,000,000. Like, there was nothing my ex could look at me, nothing could say. I just trusted I was being taken care of by my lawyer. And it ended up being just this beautiful experience, So it was, I just always was giggling throughout this court because, like, I go, you just see everyone miserable and just doing their thing. And I'm just sitting there like a little queen, just taking it all in, just letting it all happen for me.
And I'm sure it gave you a sense of feeling empowered as well.
Power, confidence,
Yeah, exactly.
assured. Yeah.
That is pretty funny. I'll share a similar story when I was younger and trying to get into, because I was a tomboy. So then I had to try to get to that feminine side of myself, right? And to do that in my 20s, I actually would wear corsets and the same type of stockings and nobody knew, but it was just a way for me to get in touch with the feminine side of who I was and get comfortable with that. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Oh,
And that was
I invite all women when, whether it's an everyday moment or, like, even you're at home, we're going through this COVID thing, take a moment and indulge yourself. Like, there's been times I've totally dressed up, done a romantic candlelight dinner, danced with myself, and and I'm like, I had the most amazing date ever, right? And they're like, with who? And I'm like, myself, right?
exactly. It's called abandonment. Abandonment. Just sometimes go abandon. Nobody, like, it's all about loving yourself and just being aware of the things that you like. What music would you listen to on a date with yourself? what would you do? And to be able to answer that and be able to not think about it, I'm always amazed. And you know, I don't want this necessarily to be just a female discussion, but at the same time, I'm always amazed when you ask your girlfriends and stuff certain questions and they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and that shows me that they're not self-reflecting, they're not real, they're just going through the day-to-day routine, but not taking time to really figure out how some of those day-to-day routines might have changed their likes, their dislikes, and the way they would approach things. So this is a very interesting. Now let me turn it a bit around to talk about the love and sex part of it. So going now from yourself, so you now, you know, you do start to go through that self-love, you know, that self-awareness, that self-nurturing, and now you want to connect with someone.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for Theano?
Well, first, I'll tell you, I want to offer like a really quick tool to the
Yeah.
audience because I find it so invaluable, and everyone I share it with, like they find it something so minute, but it really starts tuning them in to pleasure. And this is for men and women. So I always say, like, have a pleasure scale, right? So from 0 to 10. And just call that in throughout your day. Like I use this in the bedroom, you know, with my boyfriend, you know, and I offer this to all couples. Like when you're intimate, what are you feeling? Like you're a 4, a 5, a 6, you know, and then the whole thing is whether you're inside or outside of the bedroom, what can bring it closer to a 10? Right. So even I'm sitting here right now and, you know, I was preparing for this interview. So I'm like, okay, like, oh, good. You know, what would make me, you know, it feels like a 7. Okay, well, what can I do to bring it closer to my 10? Oh, I got my tea. I picked a different chair. I put on a different top. And I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling juicy, right? So whether it's at the office, making dinner, even reading a book or watching TV, having a conversation with somebody, always check in. Where am I on my pleasure scale and what can I do to bring this closer? So I offer that to any man and woman. It's something you start tuning into things that you're just like, oh, okay, I can make this better. It is up to me. So now going to how do you bring, extend this self-love to relationship? You know, you start magnetizing a very different frequency when you start elevating your self-care, right? So the people you attract will be higher quality. The people you interact with, there'll be deeper conversations. And so when you translate this, it's always like, okay, that you start organically paying attention to the little details that you do for yourself in the relationship. You don't just let it go on autopilot anymore. You don't just let it go through the motions. It's more about, you know, I teach a lot of my clients about sexual communication or nonviolent communication or, you know, conscious connecting.
Right.
So this is the foreplay that ends up coming into the bedroom, right? Because you're creating a space or inviting like the ability to express wants, desires, needs, you know, and mute places through, I'm going to say, intimate conversations that bring up those vulnerabilities, allow you to surrender to each other. You know, I had one potential client. I was, you know, we were having a conversation, and he was telling me about the situation with his wife, and you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's like a 7 out of 10, but you know, it's not greener on the other side, but it's kind of gotten this monotonous role. We've been married 20 years, right? Yeah. So I'm a huge romantic. Okay. Like you give me any scenario, I'll find to like make it extraordinary. So he tells me a little bit about this and then he's like, oh, that's my birthday tomorrow, whatever. I said, you know what? Here's something you're going to do on your birthday. So I gave him this little exercise to do with his wife. And then the next morning I said, I just got to download. There's something else you're going to do. It's your birthday. You're going to buy her flowers. And in that note that you're going to put with those flowers, you're going to thank her for being your, you know, like riding the tide. Like you're going to thank her for being part of your life, you know, for the past 20 years, right? And then you're going to tell her 3 things you genuinely appreciate about her. And I go, whether it's just being the mother of your child, whether it's just letting you, the freedom to build your business and do all these crazy things that you did, whether it's just staying with you and riding the tide, whatever you can find that you can genuinely appreciate, tell her. And then you do the 3 exercises, right? So the next 2 days later, he messaged me, thanks for the tip. The flowers were a hit. I didn't talk to him for a week later. I was like, oh my God, what happened, right? And he was like, well, I gave her the flowers and she cried. I go, yeah, no shit, right? Like you touched
I love the reaction. She cried.
Right? Yeah. But I said to him, what happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I felt my heart crack open. And it makes me emotional. Because I said, that's the magic. And we forget that it's the simple things of intention, devotion.
Yes.
Like when we remember what we're devoted to and we ignite that, it's like the world, you start seeing it with richer, vibrant, different, not gray anymore.
And he gave of himself. He gave of himself on a day when most people will want something back. Right? So that takes you on a whole different stratosphere. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, like all my friends, people come like, oh, I've got this going on in my life. What do you suggest? And they'll just say things, and I'll just have these wisdom bombs of like, oh yeah, do this or try. They're just like, oh my God, I'm like having the best night tonight, like, yeah.
So continuing along the relationship piece, those are things. So when do you recognize, like, what are some of the triggers that you're going down the wrong path? Like it's time to make a change or time to do some of these things. What do you see as some of the triggers possibly?
Well, I'm going to tie that into the lost art of devotion a little bit, because we live in a world that keeps us in constant distraction, constantly outside of ourselves. It's like there's higher powers that be, that the most that they can keep us disconnected, disassociated, whatever, they're winning the game. And we're putting money into the escape, the, disruption or whatever. So the whole thing is when you come back to remember devotion,
right,
whatever it is that you're loyal or, excited about, and you start tuning into that, that's when you start remembering of like, oh, how can I bring this into my life? So with relationships, like I find when they start feeling, a lot of women I find get attached to the task oriented of relationship, like especially when they're high achievers in the world, it becomes very, okay, I got this, and this. I got to come home, do this for the kids. Oh yeah, I got to have sex with my husband. It becomes a task, and they actually eventually stop. For a lot of people I've interacted with, they almost start desiring it. They find excuses not to have it because it's another thing to do rather than something to receive or surrender to or joy.
Right.
And on the other hand, it becomes a very results oriented. Like in their businesses, they're very like the goal, the results. Go. So they bring that into the bedroom. Pressure as well. So you have these 2 different contexts. So when you that are not being digested prior to coming into their intimacy, or at least recognizing, hey, this is how we function out here, but what are we doing to protect this sacred garden of our relationship to make sure we don't bring it in here, or that we hold each other in a different way through it, right? So one, telltale signs is like when you're starting to not look forward to going home, or you feel yourself arguing a lot, you're projecting, and it's really not about, you'll find things that annoy you and drive you nuts. There's a root underneath even that, right? When you stop honoring or respecting each other and you start, talking or king each other in ways that really don't hold the relationship to, like, I'm going to say on the pillar that it should be. That's the distraction, the escapism. When you start noticing, hey, I'm looking out here for satisfaction instead of in here. You know, those are all, and the thing is, like, it's energy of attraction to somebody. It's okay to have energy, to be like, to feel that, oh my God, that person's hot. Doesn't mean you need to act on things.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do in my work is harnessing the energy, like the life force energy, using it to channel it, and use it for good. Like whether it be for your own vitality, with your own sexuality, with your business, with your health. There's ways to use sexual energy to really live an optimal experience of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Rather than just escape and leak and, you know, fall into this autopilot of functioning. Oh, this is just the way it is. Well, we've been together this long. This is just, well, no, it doesn't have to be. Like I know many couples who they're more in love now after 15, 20 years than not, because they understand that the investment in their relationship is what is the life, is the fuel for
Is
transformation.
a few. Yeah. And how many of them, how many times do you find that people don't truly understand the intimacy word, or have that their what they deem to be intimacy really not be intimacy? Do you find that there's a confusion there at times?
Oh, totally. So I had this one couple I was working with recently, and they were married together probably about 23, 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing this workshop, you know, like this Tantra workshop exclusively for them. And they're like, oh yeah, our relation's really good. You know, we talk, you know, we have sex regularly. I'm like, okay, we're just going to test that a little bit. Right. And I was able to demonstrate to them the difference between affection,
Mm-hmm.
intimacy through these exercises
Exactly.
we did. And they were, you know, in the intimacy exercise, even if it's just how you're communicating in a like they were simply doing a hand massage exercise, let's say, right? But they were using different language, more eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
slower pace, real presence. And it was beautiful because afterwards, like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like they were fumbling through it and realizing, okay, we do affection really well, but intimacy, there's still room to grow, right?
Grow. Yeah.
Because when you're eye gazing for 2 minutes straight, or you're going really slow to really get so present to the experience that you're fully immersed in it, your sensations, your emotions, your everything starts to surface, and you're holding each other in that and witnessing and allowing yourself to be seen. And that's very vulnerable for many people, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's beautiful when it happens,
Oh God.
and especially if another partner sees you in that way, is accepting of what they see, and you vice versa. So it's always I'm always amazed at the lack of understanding of the intimate word. So that's why I asked the question, because my experience is too that few people truly understand what that is, or they think they do, and it's not really as deep as it could be.
Well,
So
and it's also like I was doing some research recently with some people and just interviewing them. And it was interesting. There were many people when I said, okay, what does intimacy mean to you? Like, what does it mean to be a first class lover? Right. And for around the topic of intimacy, they directly associated it to sex.
yes,
Right.
and we both know that's wrong.
Oh God,
Yes,
yes.
we
Right.
both.
Like, so, you know, I would probe it being like, so do you
Mhm.
believe you can be intimate with somebody without sex in the equation? And it was a very confusing concept for
Mhm.
people, but yet it is so available to us.
But the interesting thing as well, Theano, is once you've experienced intimacy in that way with another individual, it is hard to settle for something less.
Oh God, yes. Like
Am I-
it's like going to like junk food, processed food,
yeah,
like, you know, gourmet French cuisine, you know, like, because yes, it completely
abs-
different flavor.
exactly. So be warned.
And
Nothing
this
will
is,
compare.
well, it's so interesting because at an innate level, like an inherent level, we all seek connection. We all seek love, right? And yet there's so much education that can be explored to really create very authentic, genuine connections to establish that. Like,
Mhm.
we get caught in I'm going to say, the quick hits of pleasure, or,
Mhm.
oh yeah, this feels good, or I'm going to follow that, or I'm going to do that. And they're intimate moments, but they're not sustained
Sustained.
intimacy. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have that sustaining piece. And then, of course, things fall apart and then they wonder, why and all of that. So, in terms of formulating relationships, your advice then would be to work on developing some of that intimacy even before you get fully physical, right?
Well,
Because intimacy can be nurtured, right,
yeah.
ahead of the full physical is what I'm saying. So if people got better at taking the relationship slowly a little bit and just trying to nurture some of that, they would have, in my mind anyway, better connections, intimate connections, and longer term, possibly. Do you agree? Or
Oh yeah, no, I think that's one of the benefits of COVID right now. It actually slows things down. There's a forced slowdown, right?
Mhm.
We've lost sight of the courting, the play and the teasing of like allowing,
The flirtatious
yes,
piece of.
and allowing that deliciousness to be there. Can I be at this level of pleasure and just enjoy and take it in before I go to the next level?
Mhm.
So you're really like allowing a build up, a momentum to be experienced, rather than just, okay, I want to sleep with this person, or hey, I want to do that. So there was going to have to, now I forgot, but
That's okay. We were flowing in our Now, there were some points you said you definitely wanted to make sure you touched upon. Have you been able to touch upon all those
yeah,
points?
like most of them, like the thing, look, intimacy, like what I'd share with people. Like
Mm-hmm.
some people say, oh no, like, okay, yes, I have various partners, or I do this, and when we're together, I'm incredible and I'm so present, and I, do this and I do that. And I said, that's great, but how are you at expanding that to prolong the relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to be seen a bit more? Just notice your patterns. That's the piece I want to say. It's like, notice your patterns. Don't judge them. Don't, feel that they have to be one way or another. But the first thing is, when you get to the awareness of noticing how you experience intimacy, like to be like, wow, I notice I feel really vulnerable, or I feel really scared to be seen, or I really shut down when I'm supposed to be opening up, right?
Right.
It's all beautiful information to start working with, and finding some way or something that works for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of us are unique. All of us have a different path, but it's the commitment to identify those things and saying, like, here's where I'm investing to deepen that, or to bring that more into my life at whatever stage, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a woman, a man, or later in life. you know, um, Intimacy from the bedroom to the boardroom creates rich, nourished, like loyal, um, very powerful relationships that thrive, like that help any area of your life thrive when you're
Right.
able.
And I think it also makes you as the individual feel amazing to know that you have strong relationships in your life, right? Whether they are meant to be a romantic relationship or just a relationship, a colleague or anything like that, to be able to influence and foster positive and really enriching relationships. The other person it helps is yourself,
Mhm. And
right?
it just really helps you develop that empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if like, let's say it's a business, conflicting situation you're in, and allowing intimacy to be there, like, wow, like I really feel how strong you're reacting to this, or how this is important to you. I don't agree, and here's why, but I can really respect your experience. Even something like that is
Mm-hmm.
intimate, because someone feels seen, someone feels acknowledged, someone feels heard, and you're just
Right.
bringing that to the table, can, more often than not, transform the whole dynamic of how something is being experienced.
Oh, fantastic. So before we wrap up, any lasting words or guidance you want? Why don't you also, this is your chance too, to throw out how people reach you, contact you, if
Oh,
you,
awesome. Wonderful. I do actually, funny enough, for the month of for February, I am doing an intimacy parlor. So I have my little private lounge where people can come 4 o'clock Eastern to just get tips, ask questions, be present. It's for free. I love contributing, to love in whatever capacity I can, and thought the month of February would be a nice way to do it like that. So that's on my Instagram post or my Facebook post at the Theano. They can find me. My website is thetheano.com. And yeah, oh my gosh, this is just, it, from what I've been through in my journey in my life, and knowing that any conversation can impact or help support someone else, enrich or nourish or rebuild their relationship, is truly an honor to hold that space for people. So
excellent. Well, thank you, Theano, for joining us. It was a wonderful conversation. I knew it would be. And for our audience, you all know that I am all about the individual and their personal growth and sense of self worth from both a personal and professional level. So, relationships are just those things that we cannot avoid in life. And so, we need to try to bring ourselves to be able to foster them to be as enriching and as beneficial to both parties in the relationship as much as we can. And that starts with first growing your own self worth, your own intimate relationship with yourself, and then extending that beautiful thing outward to others to touch them and to embrace them within your life, that one life you have to live. So, in wrapping up, I am Jen Drakes. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, depending on your preferred platform, please remember to like the show, subscribe, pass it on, and share it, and follow the show, leaving ratings and reviews where possible. The podcast audio will be posted shortly, so you can download that. We are on a breadth of platforms, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, LipSync, Apple, Google, and more. So mark your calendars for the next session of Arrays of Living. And this has been a pleasure. So thank you all for joining, and we'll be chatting with you next. Thank you so much, Theano, and we will call that a wrap.